Features Protection Review Board regular meeting, June 22nd, 2021. Jamie, did you need to make any announcements about the virtual meetings and stating your name before you speak?
I would just ask that when we do roll call that you state where your city and state where you're physically located today.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and start with a roll call. Jamie, do you want to get us started with that?
Yes, Director Colwick.
Present, and I am calling in from Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Fuller.
Here in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Glasser.
Hello, I am in my office along Woods Lake in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Leto.
Here, Kalamazoo, Michigan.
McNellis.
Mattawan, Michigan. I'm present.
Martin.
Here in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Sylvester.
Present in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Thank you. So no absences, Chair Leto.
Okay, sounds good. No need for a voice vote on that then, right? And then moving on to the agenda as presented here today. Any comments, additions, or anything otherwise for the agenda? Okay, hearing none, can I entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Okay, support, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting that was on May 25th, 2021. Are there any comments on the past meeting minutes, additions, corrections, etc.? Okay, hearing none, can I entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 25th, 2021?
Move approval as submitted.
Okay, second. All. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okey-doke. Motion carries to approve the meeting minutes from May 25th, 2021. Item E on the agenda is general citizen comments. I think IT is going to get those going for us, right?
Yes, we have 4 general comments today.
My name is Lori Holmes. I live in Kalamazoo in one of the areas that is designated for the Natural Features Protection Overlay, Phase 2. I'm very pleased to be in that section of town, and I'm very glad that the overlay is being expanded. Kalamazoo has said as a city that it recognizes that climate change is a serious problem, and if it's really going to be taking that seriously, it needs to be taking on measures as a city that are going to protect the shrinking green spaces and natural resources that we have here. I'm very much in favor of this expansion, and I very much hope that people's concerns about their private property will not keep them from supporting it. This is a measure that I have watched in action for the last year and a half, and I have been very impressed that what it leads to is not an anti-development, but rather smart development way of going about developing in the city. Thank you.
My name is Pamela Rups, and I live in the city of Kalamazoo. I strongly support the adoption of the Natural Features Protection Act that we have been exploring. Kalamazoo has so many nice areas and these natural areas make the quality of life here better and also help with climate change. These should be protected and not damaged through development around them or on them. So I think the plans that have been proposed go a long way towards preserving a good quality of life for our natural features and the quality of life of the citizens of Kalamazoo. Thank you.
Hi, this is Karen Larson. I live in the Oakwood neighborhood. The residents of Kalamazoo made a strong statement about the importance of protecting our natural areas in the city. Their voices were so loud that the City Council created a moratorium on all building permits until the natural features map could be developed. The map was approved by Planning Commission after a long night that lasted well into the following day. The next step in the Natural Feature Protection Ordinance was to form an NFP review board, which was done, and then for the board to look at creating the Phase 2 map. All of this was done by request of the City Council and the residents of Kalamazoo. The Natural Feature Protection Board was given the directive, and they did their work according to the approved Natural Feature Protection Ordinance. Again, this work was done by consent and direction of the City Commission and the Planning Council. It's time to finalize and implement the Phase 2 map. The directive was not half-hearted action. It was clear, and now Phase 2 map needs to be on record for the sustainable future of Kalamazoo and to stand as an example for other cities as well. It's time to finalize and implement Phase 2 map. Thank you for all the hard work and caring about Kalamazoo's natural areas and its features and wildlife. And having worked on our community's plan, I know that Kalamazoo is short on green space. We need to keep all of this in perspective. It's time to approve the map and move forward. Thank you very much. Bye.
My name is Alan Hunt. I live at 3638 Woodcliff Drive in the city of Kalamazoo. I'm a retired economist from the Upjohn Institute, and I would like to compliment you on the process that you followed. I think it's very fair, very thorough, and it seems like you have a good outcome. And I'd like to applaud the entire effort to save what we have left of nature in Kalamazoo. Thank you.
And that's all of the public comments at this time.
Okay. Yep.
Sorry to interrupt here. I have word from our staff that we're having some technical difficulties with the Facebook live stream. So if anyone out there is having trouble, I would recommend switching over to YouTube. Amanda, if maybe we could put a link or something in Facebook, in the Facebook chat for folks.
Good call. Okay. Any board comments in regard to the general citizen comments that we just heard? I would just say appreciate everybody calling in, and also the folks that have followed the NFP through the whole process and kind of know the intent and have been tracking what kind of how far the program's come and really what we're trying to do. So thanks to those folks. Okay, no other board comments. We'll move on to our new business for tonight. G on the agenda, and it's proposed project, redevelopment project at 3110 Oakland Drive. And I think we'll start out with IT playing any comments that we have for this particular project, if we do have any. Are there any comments for the new item 3110 Oakland Drive redevelopment? General citizen comments?
There are no citizen comments at this time.
Okay, then I think Jamie and Tammy, you can take it away from here. let us know, give us updates and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so in your agenda packets, you should have information on the revised site plan for 3110 Oakland Drive. I wanted to just point out that the applicant did make some changes following both the NFP review board meeting that they were at a couple of months ago, and then being in front of the zoning board of appeals last month. They did get approval for that variance using or encroaching on the critical root zone of a tree that was in place there on the site. So you're going to see that dumpster area that was originally proposed to be located in the slope setback, and that's been shifted over and moved closer to the more northern building and would be in the critical root zone of the silver maple tree, which is a protected tree. I also wanted to give the update that in your packet, you saw a letter from a certified arborist that the applicant had out on the site. And that talks about the condition of the tree and how it meets the requirements in the NFP ordinance to remove that tree because of its current state. It's quite diseased, it's in poor health, dying, and so it met that criteria to be removed. You'll also see in your packet sort of our evaluation sheet that kind of talks about the site and all of the different items on the site and how those kind of line up with the NFP criteria. And so that's page 5 of your agenda packet. You can see that the parcel is adjacent to Woods Lake, and they are complying with restrictions in the wellhead protection overlay. And they're also complying with the lot coverage standards. They sent public notice for this site plan review at the beginning of the month on June 8th, meeting the deadline, the 14-day deadline. And I will mention to start off here that there are going to be some changes to the stormwater on the site, and that has not been approved yet by the stormwater engineer, but that the applicant was going to be submitting some changes and getting that approved through the engineer. The full site plan went to city staff last week for site plan review. And so there are a couple of things outstanding before that gets full approval, and that includes approval of this board as well. Tammy, do you want to walk folks through I think the most critical area here is going to be looking at the slope setback and the any sort of trees and vegetation planting that's planned for the site.
Yep, absolutely. Like Jamie said, the big difference between what was presented last time and what's before you now is that dumpster enclosure location. In addition to moving it slightly to the north, it also has shrunk. We have taken some of the capacity out of that and relocated it to the north of the building currently being planned for consumers for one of their branch offices. So in addition to it moving, it also has shrunk somewhat. And like Jamie said, the arborist has taken a look at that tree, and due to the state of the health of that tree, as far as the appearance, safety, all of that, he is recommending that that does come down. So with that happening, that does obviously take away the critical root zone problem. As a result of doing that, we are required to replace that in a 3-to-1 ratio. So for every 3 inches of the silver maple we're taking down, we're required to replace that with 1 inch of tree. So where that is being proposed is all along that slope in the form of both redbuds and Cornus Florida. So some ornamental trees a little more appropriately sized for that location. So shouldn't create any issues with size of inserting that with what's already there. We are staying out of the slope setback, so that's not an issue. So the big one was the critical root zone, but with that tree being proposed to be removed, that has eliminated that factor. So with that being said, that's the changes from the last time I came before you.
Okay, Any board questions or comments for Tammy or Jamie? Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, yeah, I see the trees that you're suggesting to replace the vegetation. That's pretty cool. I think as you got, a couple of dogwoods and three, anyway, 2.5-inch caliper trees. That's cool. That's pretty good size to start with. I would just make a comment if this all goes through and all that, when you plant, I think it's right very close to where the old silver maple is, kind of, improve what you're planting in. There's just a lot of rubble there.
Absolutely.
And those trees that you're proposing there, I'm really geeked about it because that's right on the edge and the top of the slope of Woods Lake Woods there. And, we could use red buds and, dogwoods down in there. So hopefully they'll kind of follow that course. But yeah, that's going to be a difficult site to plant in. So just heads up.
Yeah, I'd also like to say thank you for taking all of our comments and concerns into consideration. And I'm happy with this new version of the site plan.
Great. And that's one other thing too, is that I know last time when we came, we thought that we only had to have native plants within that NFP overlay area, not really aware of the fact that once those parcels were all combined, that the entire site was subject. So that is another change, is that the entire site has been planted with native plants.
Yeah, I also just kind of echo other directors' comments that appreciate you looking for creative solutions to try to avoid the slope there. And I think along with the curb and gutter, and planting some of those native understory trees ultimately could make that slope a better natural area than it was before. So I feel like that's a really good outcome. The only comment I would make, there's a lot of different pages here, so maybe it's on a particular one I'm not finding, but I know that some of the plants that we've had proposed in a lot of our projects are cultivars, and I would just encourage that we have some flexibility on that, but especially the ones on that slope. If you can find the true native strains, since they have the most likelihood of actually seeding into the natural area, those genetics could get out into the natural area. So if it's the true native thing, then like I mentioned, it could actually make it a better space, put some more diversity there. So that's really my only comment there.
Sure, and I think that's easy enough to do. What we've got now is a little more of a finished look, but I'm sure I can find another ground cover that will help stabilize that slope and also give the owner the aesthetic that they're looking for.
Great. Okay. Any other board comments for Tammy or Jamie or questions? Go ahead, Bobby.
Hey, Tammy, with the changes, were you able to keep the proposed number of parking places from the original plan?
Yes, we did not lose anything.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Glad to hear that.
Yes, the owner was too.
Okay.
I wanted to just point out the MNFI letter that was also submitted. The applicant was able to get that full search done, and MSU provided, or MNFI provided, that letter. So I don't know if we had any questions, but it seemed like that was one of the standard responses that we get on a lot of these searches.
Okay. So with that, I think we want to do a roll call vote on this one, right, Jamie?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, so I entertain a motion to approve the natural features protection site plan for the redevelopment project at 3110 Oakland Drive. And then
Second.
Was that Director Fuller who's supported the motion?
Yep.
Thank you. All right. Colwick,
Yay.
Fuller,
Aye.
Glasser,
Approved.
Leto,
Yes.
McNellis,
yes,
Martin,
Yes.
Sylvester.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. It's like motion carries. 3110 Oakland Drive, approved.
Awesome.
And Tammy, I'll reach out to you after we're done with this. I have a letter that I can provide to Bobby Durkee for site plan review. And then I'll also connect back with you on some of our bonding requirements for this project because of that slope and the proximity to Woods Lake. But again, that can kind of happen through once site plan is approved and you're doing permit review and things like that.
Sounds great. Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
Tammy.
you, everybody.
Bobby Glasser should be
Thanks,
able to see the progress from his office there on Woods Lake. Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is item H, old business. So we're looking at the consideration of a recommendation to the Planning Commission to hold a public hearing on map and text amendments to Chapter 50, Article 6.2, Natural Features Protection Overlay District, and recommend approval to the City Commission. Do we have any general public comments on item H on the agenda from IT?
Yes, we have 2 public comments.
Hi, this is Hillary Hunt calling. I live in Parkview Hills, and I am a Kalamazoo resident. My address is 3824 Greenleaf Circle, Kalamazoo, Michigan, 49008. I am currently sitting as the chair of the Parkview Hills Natural Areas Stewardship Committee, and I'm also a professional in the field of nonprofit land conservation. I wanted to leave a comment that I am very excited to see the recommended additions expand the area covered by the Natural Features Protection overlay. And I think that the staff have done a great job working with homeowners to ensure that the NFP will allow continued enjoyment of their property, but also ensure that larger properties will be kept from wholesale and destructive development. Where I live, I'm right behind the WMU Business and Technology Park. And I'm very glad that the park, WMU's park, is included in the proposed additions, as this area provides invaluable upland habitat along the Portage Creek Habitat Corridor, which runs all the way from Rotocuan and El Sabo to the Parkview Hills and Asylum Lake area. So I was very excited to see those business, technology, and research park additions to the NFP, and in general am very supportive of the NFP. Thank you for your work.
Hi, my name is Tina McClinton. I live on Lake Street. I am from Kalamazoo. I live in Kalamazoo. I've been trying to save our little green space on Lake and Stockbridge for since 2018, and I believe it's in your protection plan to save this little green space. I can't get on the Zoom meeting that I was invited to, that I got a letter about. So I'm hoping I can get, by then I can have someone get me on the one tomorrow. Thank you for saving green spaces, because with climate change and our flooding problems we have, our little green space is a savior for our neighborhood. It helps us with flooding. And the animals are just wonderful to watch. Thank you, because animals need a home too. Thank you for saving green spaces for us and the animals to survive. Green spaces are very peaceful. They're very quiet. Love the trees, love the shade, love walking out in the morning, hearing the birds chirping. I love to sit out in my little gazebo and just watch the animals. I could do it for hours. And my neighbors love the animals too in the neighborhood. It's just a little piece of country in a big city. And I was wondering, were you still and phase 2 natural features protection. I'm going to save the green space and put it in the natural features protection between Lake and Stockbridge. Because like I said, I can't get to the meeting. I tried last Wednesday and I could not get to it. So hopefully by tomorrow I will be able to get to the meeting. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye.
And that is all the public comments at this time.
All right, thank you. Okay, Jamie, did you have some updates related to this item?
I have a few slides prepared, and what I really want to spend time on today is telling you about the public engagement that we've done and the interaction we've had from folks, questions we've had from folks over the last month since this board convened in May. I'm going to share my screen here a moment. All right, so that should be popping up. So since you all met on May 25th, staff did give a presentation to the Planning Commission and let them know that this was coming. This will be appearing on their July 1st Planning Commission meeting. They'll have a public hearing regarding the proposed amendments brought forth by this board. And as you guys are very familiar with, hold on a minute, I'm having some internet issues. I'm going to turn my video off for just a moment and continue to move through these slides, and hopefully we won't have any interruption. Okay. So as you all are familiar with, working on since the beginning of this year, is to modifications to the standards and the rules that apply in NFP as part of the zoning code. And as you know, that the biggest change really would be to the tree standard, and that's helping to make the implementation a bit easier, especially on smaller residential parcels, while preserving some of the rules for larger commercial or multifamily developments that most likely will have more tree removal and more impact in that way. There's also some changes to the tree tables, both the protected tree species and the replacement trees, just to make sure that those are updated to be accurate, to reflect some of the most important species in the city, and also, again, to make that implementation a bit easier. The minimum tree size has been reduced, just providing more flexibility and more options for those who are creating site plans that work with these rules. There's also a proposed change to the woodlands definition, as you know, so that it fits more with an urban woodland that we have here in Kalamazoo. There are some recommended changes to the native plant requirements so that your board has more flexibility implementing that while you're in these meetings. And then the last part of that is the bonding requirement. That's sort of across the board bonding requirement, and the way the amendment reads that can be a little bit more tailored to and recommended on a case-by-case basis. The second big amendment moving forward here that staff's looking to move forward to the Planning Commission with your approval tonight is this map expansion. And so you can see here, it's rather small. I'm trying to make this a little bit bigger, but we just have a thumbnail, kind of a snapshot of the proposed map. I would encourage everyone, as you know, to go to the NFP2 website, and I'm going to have that link up here in just a moment. But there you can really zoom in and see sort of at a neighborhood level or at a street level what the different proposed parcels to be included look like. But here, generally, you can see the green parcels. We're at just under 400 parcels are currently in the NFP overlay district. They've been in there. They've been in this overlay district for the past 2 years, and we've been implementing the program as you're familiar with. The proposal here is to add these pink parcels. That would be adding just under 1,400 new parcels. You can see that it helps cover areas of the city, especially along Davis Creek and sort of through the Edison and Millwood neighborhood. It fills in some portions along Portage Creek, and then it definitely covers the area that one of our callers spoke about, which is this connection of West Fork Portage Creek, sort of through the city, picking up and including more water bodies, and then as it connects into Portage Creek. And then we also have a lot of sloped and wooded areas in the Douglas neighborhood in the northern part of the city that get included in this proposal, and then some areas in the northwest as well. I think there's two big things to point out that have been changed since you last saw this map in May. And there was really two requests that came to us as staff. So we've only seen the two. We looked at and evaluated both of them. One request was for parcels in Winchell, and what the request was asking for was some update to those natural features on the map. So it was that, yes, these should be still included in the map, but it talked about how one parcel didn't have a woodland, as pointed out. It was more of just some tree and tree canopy, and so we changed that. And there was a slope change as well. But this was, data corrections, not a change in whether a parcel was or was not included in the overlay district. The other parcels that came forward were industrial parcels that are part of an operation on Miller Road, very near Davis Creek, but Davis Creek does not cross the property or get close to the property boundary as the data that we had. We had both another aerial image that we used, or satellite image that we used, but we also relied on a survey that the owner provided that showed that the Davis Creek is on the adjacent property and not likely within that buffer area, riparian buffer area. So it didn't really have any natural features on that parcel that would apply during a site plan review. And so for that reason, we removed those parcels at 2600 Miller Road. Other than that, generally speaking, for our public engagement, notice letters got mailed to every parcel that's being proposed to be added into the NFP overlay district. Those were mailed on June 7th, and they went both to the physical property and to any registered taxpayer of that property. We also then followed the zoning code statute that says we need to mail letters to certain surrounding property owners within 300 feet of something being proposed for rezoning. And we mailed those letters as well, all at the same time. And we put a map up at City Hall where folks could go into City Hall and look at that map instead of relying only on the online map or the downloadable map. I will point out as well, I wanted to show you, I think most of you have seen this, but just so you can kind of look at it here. What we did differently from last fall was we included a bit more information for folks, right? So we had the letter letting them know that there was a rezoning happening, but we also provided this fact sheet. So it gave a lot more information in a snapshot telling folks what this overlay district is all about. It gave them lots of information on how to connect with city staff and participate in upcoming meetings. It talked about the steps that you guys took to come up with this proposed amendment. And then it also gave a little bit of detail on all of the different standards that apply within the current zoning code. And then pointed out places for folks to check out the map. And then also talked a little bit about the differences in review paths, depending on what type of property you own or live in. Okay, so we've been fielding a lot of phone and email inquiries. I will say that the volume's quite a bit less than last fall. I think last fall we spoke to, I would say, around 75 individuals, either by phone or email, maybe a few more. This time I was just doing some counts, and you saw from your packets and from some of the comments that I forwarded earlier today, there've been a lot of public comments, but when it comes to phone and email inquiries, we've probably had just over a dozen. We've also been offering those NFP review, like zoning review maps and discussions, and we've done 4 of those to date. So we have had some folks who've wanted to go in a little bit more depth and look at their property. I will say one of the 4 is in NFP phase 1, and they're looking at potentially doing a project. So we were able to provide them with a map as well of some of the slopes on their property. As I mentioned, public comments are in your packets, and also I sent you more today. Several more came out after last Thursday, after the packets were out. I'm going to continue to compile those if public continues to send those in, and make sure that those get to the Planning Commission from now on. We've posted those public comments to the NFP2 website, and we're going to continue to post any comments that we get that are directed toward the Planning Commission to that same website. So if folks from the public are wondering if your comments have been received, have they been passed along, if you'll check out that website and find your comment, you'll know it got passed along. If you see something missing, please reach out to staff and we can make sure that comment gets passed along. And then the last piece of engagement we've been doing, we held one community information session last Wednesday. It was a noon meeting, and we had probably about a dozen people participate. We maybe had a half a dozen questions. We started with a kind of in-depth presentation. We spent about 30 minutes giving folks information on kind of how the current overlay district works and how the rules work, based on what type of project, what your project review pathway might look like, and then talked a bit about mapping. I know Nolan spent some time showing folks the map and some of the new information that we're providing this time around. And then we're offering that same community information session. So for those who missed it last Wednesday, we're offering another session this Wednesday. That one will be at 7 p.m. And as one of the callers mentioned, we did make an important change for this one happening tomorrow at 7 p.m. We're going to be live streaming that both to YouTube and Facebook. We didn't do that the first time around. We invited people just to join through the Zoom meeting. They could be unmuted and ask their questions out loud to the group. We're going to still do that, but we'll also offer that live stream option for folks. Okay, so lastly, I will just put up here some information for folks from the public. If they're joining us this afternoon, you can go to imaginekalamazoo.com and you can navigate to our projects, and you'll see an NFP2 website, or you can see the full link there if you want to type that in to your internet browser. On that website, you're going to find a bunch of resources. So you're going to see an interactive map, that one that I mentioned, that you can zoom in, zoom out. You can also on the top right corner search a specific address, and you'll be able to see if it's in the overlay district. If you're one of those folks who got a letter because you're within 300 feet, type in your address and you're going to be able to see anything around you that's highlighted in pink. And those are the parcels that the letter was referring to. You also have an option to download a map in a PDF format, or actually it's an image file, in case that browser is giving you any trouble or that interactive map isn't loading properly for you. And then again, definitely head down to City Hall if you want to see a map in person. We have a large format poster. It's in the back of City Hall on the first floor. Look at the south entrance and you're going to see that there. On the website, you can also grab those text amendments if you want to check those out. We have a summary table that gives a brief description of what the changes are to the text, but we also have the full black line edited version that you can see exactly what the recommended text changes are. Other information you can gain from the website, or ways you can leave comments. We have a comment box on the website, so you can type in your comments there. Those get sent directly to staff. You can see all of the meeting details and get links to a lot of that information. Thank you to city staff who continually update that. I know our NFP agenda was posted there. You should be able to get all the information you need for upcoming meetings. Again, I think the two important ones are here on your screen. That's tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. We're doing our last information session. And then this recommendation is going to be heading to the Planning Commission July 1st for a public hearing when approved by this board. You'll also get all of the staff contact information, how to call us up, ask any last questions you have about the map. If you see errors or concerns you have about the map, I would really encourage folks to reach out to us by next Monday, the 28th, so that if we have any changes we want to pass along to the Planning Commission, staff will have some time to talk to folks about their concerns and get those changes in front of and to the Planning Commission by July 1st. And then there at the bottom, there's an email address that you can pass along the information you want to staff. And I'll also mention any comments that come in. Again, if you can aim for next Monday, the 28th, we'll make sure those get to our planning commissioners. You can, of course, send those comments right up until the meeting. They just get passed along, without a lot of time for those commissioners to check them out. All right, Chair Leto, that's all staff has unless Nolan wants to add anything.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Do we have any comments for Jamie, questions, discussion, etc.?
Yeah, I guess I had a comment, which is I'd gone through all the public comments you had sent, and it seemed like the first round we had, there was a lot of misunderstanding about what would trigger the NFP on properties. And it seems like a lot of that's been cleared up and we're getting a lot of support. But I guess I'm just curious about, I think that our case record of the cases that have come before us and, how we've worked with everyone, I hope that the information sheets can convey to these citizens that have concerns about the infringement on property rights and all of this, that it really is our goal to make Kalamazoo a better place and to not stop all development or redevelopment, but to make sure it's done in the best way possible. And also that, there's people mentioning the additional costs associated with the NFP process, but I really see that it's not going to be that much additional cost. And I think that my organization, MSU, Michigan Natural Features Inventory, and others, we have resources that we can connect members of the public with, especially particularly private property owners. And that I hope that our track record so far and openness and willingness to work with the public and landowners can help convey that we want this to be a good place for people to live. And we want to have very intentional planning when it comes to natural resources, because it's not something that we can just decide to recover again from sedimentation. So I don't know, sorry, it says my internet connection is unstable, but I hope that was coming through, so.
I agree, Ashley. I thought I received a couple of the notices. I got one at home, received one also at my office with regard to one of the properties in our management portfolio. I thought the explanatory material that accompanied it, I thought that was really nicely written, well prepared, good graphics, good job on that, whoever put that together, Jamie. And when the piece came to my office, one of my partners said, what the heck is this, Alan? Is this that group you're involved in? So it allowed then, some friendly banter among colleagues about what is this? What does it mean? How does this affect us? And and on another encouraging note, I thought anecdotally what the review we just finished with the proposed Consumers Credit Union site and that interaction, as we know, that was really constructive. And Bosch Architecture does a lot of commercial real estate architecture, and no doubt that they now understand this process, and that information will start to spread and will start to network. At least that's my hopeful thought on this. So I completely agree, Ashley.
Yeah, I agree with both of those comments, and I just wanted to reiterate that I think as we've been approaching this, a lot of our focus has been on sort of big redevelopment projects, and the impact to the average residential landowner is going to be pretty minimal. And I'm one of those average residential landowners who is included in this map update. My property is, and so I looked through it pretty carefully to make sure, I obviously support natural features protection, but I wanted to make sure that it was balanced with like how I want to use my property and all of those things. And I feel extremely comfortable that it's a really appropriate balance to preserve the natural features that are important to everyone. You know, the oxygen that we all need is produced on my property and those surrounding me. And you know, these are features that are shared resources. They don't stop at the property lines. But I think, like I said, I think it's been a really good balance, and I've been appreciative of how this board has worked together with folks who are doing redevelopment and tried to find creative solutions. So to reiterate, for those folks who have concerns, I think that we have been able to work with people pretty successfully, and this should not be a big burden on small residential properties.
Yeah, I'll just echo everybody's comments, and I think there's some great discussions and points being made here. And I think to Aaron's comment about being a private single family home owner too, most of the NFP area projects we don't even see. They just get a simple staff review and approval. And I think Jamie said something like 80 to 90% of those have been of that nature. And so I think most of the folks that we've heard from are of that private single family homeowner category. And so probably wouldn't even hear the project at this meeting for this kind of review. And then I'd also just like to compliment Jamie and Nolan and city staff on all their work in developing, you know, the text with us and the mapping itself, but also I think in particular all the different avenues that we've tried to make available for people so that they feel like they've had due notice, had ample opportunity to interact and ask questions and make comments and raise concerns between the streaming meetings and the informational sessions and the written comments and the call-in comments. I especially think having it posted at City Hall is great for folks that might not have a computer or access to good internet, those sorts of things. I think that's really important too, so that everybody can get to that information. I think just because it was under this item of business, the woman, Tina, that called in concerned about the area between Stock and Lake Bridge, the map, I wasn't sure she was able to get to that, but I can see just at looking at it that it is proposed in the NFP2 area. So any developments would be subject to that process there.
Chair Leto, I wanted to let you know that it sounds like we may have had a couple of callers call in and leave messages since the meeting started. And if this is a good time to perhaps play those before you guys make a vote.
Sure.
Tuan, do you think you could queue up those last messages?
Hello,
Please.
my name is Wendy Denning. I do live in the city of Kalamazoo, and I am commenting on the acceptance of the NFP and shooting it off to City Commission. I was born and raised in Kalamazoo and have operated a business here for almost 40 years. Thus, my roots in Kalamazoo are deep. I love this community. I'm grateful to the city of Kalamazoo and their forward thinking regarding the natural features of our beautiful city. I am proud to be a part of a community who values green spaces, trees, and fresh air. Building has been happening at a rapid pace in Kalamazoo for the last 70 or so years to the detriment of our trees, woods, fresh air, and water. For such development to continue without protecting our city's diminishing natural features, I feel is unnecessary, reckless, and irresponsible. I applaud the city of Kalamazoo and its inception of the NFP. As a business owner for 40 years, there have been
times I have been frustrated at having been prevented from expanding my business as I see fit by seemingly onerous city rules and ordinances. I've had to modify my plans to comply with rules I have not always supported. However, I've always found ways to carry out my plans within the confines of the rules. The NFP does not prevent development, rather it requires development to work within the guidelines of the NFP. I feel that is a small price to pay to protect and preserve the beautiful natural features of our beloved city. I give my full support to the NFP. Thank you. Bye.
And that is one of the last public comments at this time.
Okay. Any other board questions or discussion on the item to recommendation to the Planning Commission?
I just have one quick thing, and Jamie, maybe you can comment on this, but this is in response to one of the earlier comments that talked about including WMU properties. And Jamie, can you remind me, I believe we've talked about this, but I believe that Kalamazoo zoning does not affect WMU properties, but we wanted to include them in the map in case they ever changed hands. So I just wanted, because that person commented specifically on that, I wanted to clarify that for the public.
Yeah, Director Fuller, thank you for bringing that one up. I think that's an important point to speak on briefly, since, as you mentioned, the caller did mention these properties. And we have been in conversations with the city attorney's office on this topic. When does zoning apply to state type entities like Western Michigan University, but also county government can fall under this category, school districts, some of those more autonomous entities. And what we've learned is that it really is a case-by-case basis that the city typically makes this determination, although certainly any property that's being used for MS or Western Michigan University's core mission and educational purposes, those are exempt from zoning code. So they wouldn't apply, they wouldn't have to do site plan review, and they wouldn't come forward to this board. Western Michigan University certainly has a lot of their own environmental standards that they apply to all of their type of development projects, and they often work very closely with the city on infrastructure type planning for those projects. And there may be cases that come forward that, and I'm thinking about the BTR park, if a parcel is sold to a private entity, they would likely be regulated under the zoning code. And that's where, as Director Fuller mentioned, there was value in making sure that areas identified with these features got put on the map, even if the zoning code's not going to be applied to them in their current state under their current ownership. So I hope that answers some of your questions and helps the caller as well understand that in many cases, Western Michigan University wouldn't be subject to our zoning or NFP.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. That's what I thought was the case, but you said it much more eloquently than I could have.
All right, any other board comments? Okay, hearing none, can I entertain a motion to recommend to the Planning Commission hold a public hearing on map and text amendments to Chapter 50, Article 6.2 Natural Features Protection Overlay District, and recommend approval to the City Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Support. Okay, and we'll do a roll call vote. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. Colwick.
Support.
Fuller.
Yes.
Glasser.
I am in favor of the motion.
Leto.
Support.
McNellis.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Sylvester.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Motion passes. And then item I on our agenda, getting towards the end here, are any announcements or any other maybe city comments that are, sorry, general comments that came in since we last heard?
There are no more public comments at this time.
Okay, any announcements?
I don't have any announcements unless Nolan wants to jump in here, but just that the plan is to have this public hearing put on the July 1st Planning Commission meeting. That's held at 7 p.m. As far as I understand, that's been publicly noticed, and so it will go on as a virtual meeting in the standard format.
Jamie, did we want to mention our meeting with Andrew at all, or is that not? I just found it's an interesting thing that it didn't happen last fall that might interest the board members. So.
Yes, so the meeting that Nolan is talking about was something that he helped organize with staff to meet with our assistant city assessor and treasurer and talk about how if taxable values might be impacted by NFP. And we're going to make sure that we present and build in some of this information in the presentation to Planning Commission next week, because that is a topic that often comes up. What we found that was very interesting was that properties that already have substantial wetlands or significant or steep slopes that would prohibit building, right, making a portion of or a large portion of the property unbuildable, those are things that the assessor's office is already taking into consideration as part of their assessment. And the assessor's office was very open to any meetings if folks from the public, if property owners wanted to have any discussions to talk more specifically about their property. If you reach out to staff, we'd be happy to set that up and help facilitate a meeting so you can kind of understand any issues, impacts to taxable values. Overall, I think the takeaway from that meeting was that there are many, many factors that go into setting a property's taxable value, and that any one item, something like an overlay district, would be very hard to probably correlate and say that there was a positive or a negative change because of that one condition. Aside from that idea that a property would become entirely unbuildable. And the way the NFP overlay district is written is that there's always that safety valve. There's always that opportunity for a property owner to come forward and say, I need a variance for this purpose, and that it's this board and the zoning board of appeals job to evaluate that and make sure that the property is given a variance, at least in a minimal way, to make sure a property can be used for its own purpose. So it's kind of a long answer to say we're learning a lot more about valuation and taxes. We continue to get those questions, and we'll work that into our presentation next week.
Great. And I saw that was included in the FAQ packet too. So I thought that was a great touch, good item to go over. All right. If there are no further announcements or questions, then I'm happy to adjourn tonight's meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.
Have a good night.
Thank you.